好，見大家都翻到嚟呢度啦。咁我哋事不宜遲，即刻進行最後一個，亦都係最精彩嘅環節，就係 panel discussion。咁有請我哋嘅主持人 Doctor 姐會主持而家嘅環節啦，亦都請咁多位講師同埋星級嘅運動員呢上到嚟台前，咁就同我哋對話。如果咁多位有問題嘅話咧，都可以繼續寫喺即係 scan QR code，然後話翻俾我哋聽，咁我哋會盡量睇大家嘅問題嘅。交個時間俾 Michael。
Thank you. Hello. OK， 呢個係最後嘅 session， 所以我講少少廣東話。但係我哋做多啲 interactive， 唔係淨係我哋講我想你呢度問啲問題。同埋如果你哋可以用少少英文，有少少廣東話，因為有 Bailee 喺度。So we just mix it up a little bit, okay? So and we want to try to make it more interactive for everybody. So if we can get some questions from the audience, as well as we can get some questions going here. So 因為佢哋喺度呢個係好經驗。因為平時我哋聽啲 sports psychology 係多啲理論的，但係而家有啲運動員喺度，所以有啲實習個經驗。Okay, so I just want to start off some questions from the panel. You know, you're athletes not just now at the Asian Games, and you've been probably training for a long time. You started as a child, maybe someone found you. Through some kind of talent identification. So, at which point in your life or your career did you get your first experience with sports psychology, whether it's with a professional psychologist or any experience that you had that you felt was some kind of mental or sports psychology?
My first experience with sports psychology?
Anything like that you thought, because now, you know, you're an SI and you have that opportunity to have sports psychology. But maybe as a kid you didn't really have that, or maybe there were some experiences that you had with a coach or other things you read that you thought, I should use sports psychology.
Yeah, I think growing up at international school in Hong Kong, I got introduced as an athlete. I was a swimmer when I was younger, and my coach introduced the idea of sports psychology, but at the time I thought to myself I didn't need it. But I think during COVID in Hong Kong and those few years, it was very important to speak to somebody for me. And so that was a big change in my life during that time. And I still speak to somebody today.
對我嚟講，可能我覺得我細個嘅時候係一個好勤力練習，但係每一次比賽都會因為一啲自己嘅情緒或者緊張，咁就 perform 得冇咁好。咁之後就慢慢開始接觸多咗一啲，我一開始接觸 mindfulness 先嘅。咁我就有時自己會夜晚開始冥想啊，或者有時 mindful walk 啊，咁自己個心靜落嚟嘅時候，會開始諗到多啲嘢。咁慢慢就開始接觸到，即係覺得自己要關注下自己嘅 mental health。咁之後就開始接觸多啲運動心理學，咁就同睇完一啲運動心理學嘅專家去傾下偈。
Okay, 15 seconds your translation in English.
When I was young, I always performing not very well because of nervous. So I always have some meditation and mindful walk at night time by myself. And after that, I feel getting better in my performance. So I start to working with the psychologist in Hong Kong SI.
So I just gave you some training for the nerves. Yeah. Okay, so just our next question is to the speakers. So we know that the mental side of training is very important, but from a young age, athletes or kids training, they will have come to the training, do your physical training, and maybe this leads on to a question that was given by the audience about how sports psychology can be brought into the general public or maybe for coaches at different levels. If it's that important, how much is sports psychology put into coach education at a younger level or given to athletes?
Thanks for the question. You mean how much should put into the coach?
Yeah, because if it's very important, because actually there's so many different sports, and you go to do your wushu training, then they train wushu, or they do another sport, but they just focus on the sport. But is the sports psychology something that you only get to a certain level first as I become an elite athlete, and okay, now you can do sports psychology, or is it something that should be or is incorporated in training of athletes from a young age?
Well, to me, I definitely think that it can be applied to athletes across age group. Could be different focus, different topic, but still, I mean, even a young one or even a beginner can learn a lot about psychology. Or some sort of mental skill that can help them to learn some new skill, how they can use visualize to learn the new skill. So just like I always say how I use those mental skills to learn driving when I have my driving lessons, and so it's the same that can be applied across the board. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the curriculum of the coach education that I know, they always have some sort of sports side component on it, and I think this is really good. Yeah.
So do you think it's enough for coaches who get certified in Hong Kong? Do they have enough experience to know when to pass it to a psychologist, or they know how to do the basic level of psychology?
I would say much better than 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
And it's improving. I mean, the way we work with the coaches, you will see the difference when we talk to the coaches. I mean, I'm sure that 100% that all the coaches have loads of experience about the athlete mindset and what they're thinking about. Just depends on how they conceptualize it or how they interpret those information and put it into a more applied thing to help them out. Or sometimes just to toughen up or have some sort of skill to facilitate their learning process. And I think it's getting better.
So Angela, I'd like to see if you have any question for our athletes here related to their experience in psychology.
Yeah, sure. For me, I think just now I mentioned that in my slides that because social media and media attention has been getting a lot crazier nowadays, and so how do you manage those attention from either from the reporters or from the social network? And when you see a press release about yourself on the front page maybe, so how would you interpret those?
首先我係划雙人艇嘅，咁我同我 partner 都唔係好出名嘅，咁所以咧就其實比賽之前好多 media 訪問我哋。咁which is 其實係一個 good news 啊，對我嚟講。咁起碼我可以專心喺我自己嘅 performance 嗰度啦，咁唔會俾好多嘢影響到。咁同埋其實每個 association 喺我哋去 Asian Games 之前，佢哋都會有個類似記者招待會咁樣啦，咁就介紹一下有咩運動員會去亞運會，同埋我哋會俾邊一項目。咁嗰一次嘅嗰一日，啲記者嚟到啦，咁佢哋就逐個運動員問。咁其實我同我 partner 咧就會自己揾個地方匿埋嘅。咁
啲秘密冇得俾人哋下次用唔到呢一招咯。
咁因為咧，首先佢哋嗰陣時就唔係好熟我哋啦，其實見唔到我哋都唔係太緊要嘅。咁然後另外就係我哋即係當下我哋匿埋，其實雖然有少少唔係好尊重大家，但係我哋嗰一刻諗嘅就係對我哋自己嘅 performance 最緊要。咁起碼我哋接觸少咗外界嘅資訊，對我哋自己嚟講係一件好事嚟嘅。咁所以我哋就係盡量少啲接觸呢啲，同埋 social media 就正如啱啱所講啦，即係冇乜人睇我哋嘅，所以就未有感受呢方面壓力。但係攞咗獎之後就感受到少少，但係其實都唔算特別大壓力嘅，暫時覺得。
Nice. I think for social media, for me, so I don't really understand the Hong Kong media pages, but I know as an athlete and what I do in my life with training and with school is I compartmentalize. So whatever happens, I just leave it behind. If I have a bad training session, I don't think about it after it's done. And that's the same with newspaper articles and with posting online. I try and post a good representation for the younger generation to see. And what I post for like the newspapers and what I say to reporters, I make sure that it is all very safe and not controversial, because I don't know what could happen in the future. And I know, I guess one example is with being a Guaimoy, I get lots of maybe backlash saying why is, you know, the white girl representing Hong Kong on the podium for Hong Kong, but Hong Kong Shasai. So like Hong Kong is my home, and I know that, and I just make sure that I have my own values, and therefore I don't let the outside affect me.
Yeah. So 我哋都知道而家你係比較以前20年啦，而家個例如如果你攞金牌、銅牌、銀牌會多啲錢。So like now you guys compared to like 20 years ago, you get much more money to get a medal, right? Like 100萬、50萬, you know, so something pretty good. So how do you know, sometimes some people may need the money, or they want the money, or they think that's really important, and that becomes more of a focus, like, also 100萬, you know? So how did you put that completely out of your mind, or is it anything that's important to you?
I think the money helps support us and our lifestyle, but as an athlete, I am very passionate, and I think with that, I would still do this even without the money, and that proves that I'm wanting to do the sport that much. And I guess I just have to think to myself, the money is not something I focus on. I'm here solely for the sport and representing Hong Kong, and doing the best that I can to make my home proud. Yeah.
I'm totally agree with what Bailee said, because when I was young and being a full-time athlete, my main goal is not being rich. So the money is not the.
But now it is.
而家係。
But you don't mind, right? You don't mind.
咁好老實講，10年前做運動員，即係我諗冇一個運動員會係諗住發達去做運動員㗎嘛。即係大家嘅初心都係諗住想代表香港，想為港爭光。咁但係我諗即係其實呢個錢喺嗰一刻，大家可能冇放到咁大，冇諗過10年之後話攞金牌有100萬，但係反而個本身嘅目標係諗住可以代表香港出到比賽，可以攞到金牌，呢個先係最原始嗰個目標。咁有錢當然好啦，但係錢係算係一個 bonus 我自己覺得。
係因為其實以前啦，即係有啲人可能會更加會去計較 team events 分嘅錢，同埋 individual events， 即係又會喺度計較呢一啲嘅。咁所以以前亦都有啲運動員咧，有啲項目咧，可能講緊佢又要 individual event， 佢又要 team event， 跟住有機會會唔會話影響到不如我 focus 多啲落 individual events， 因為嗰個獎金可能會多啲 ，instead of 一個 team event 要同人哋分獎金喎咁樣。咁所以呢一個我諗可能以前冇咁多人去關注呢樣嘢 ，which is 都幾有趣嘅一個話題嚟。
I think what Bailee just said is very good, that we say that she will still do it without the money. I think that we'll pick up this question and ask the athletes sometimes when we deal with the thing. But I think the fact is the fact. Now that the money is here, so how you react to it is your choice. And frankly, I think there's a long way to go. And actually, for a young person as a perspective, how do you learn to react to those consequences is something very, very important. Yeah, because
in some cases the athletes might get money and then think start training differently or thinking differently. I think that's another mental side on how you, as Michael Phelps said, put it behind you because you have other things to focus on. So now maybe just steering the question a little bit differently. Like now, both of you are medalists in Asian Games. I think you have different goals now, maybe even Olympics. But now you got a gold medal in the Asian Games. So congratulations. So now, as you said, the people didn't know you before, and now they know you. And you probably have a different expectation of yourself. So when you enter races, you may have a different pressure on yourself to perform a certain way. So how do you deal with, because I've had my own experiences before where I think, I should be in this level. I mean, my result compared to where I was before, I should actually, in a race, be here. How do you deal with that in the moment? Like if you're not doing as well as you in a race that you think you should do, and suddenly you're not doing that well. How do you focus?
首先亞運會喺亞洲區係一定係最高嘅舞台嚟嘅，咁可以喺亞洲區最高水平嘅賽事度攞到金牌呢，其實係對我同埋我 partner 係一個即係證明到我哋喺亞洲區係有頂尖水平。咁嚟緊，我哋下一個目標一定就係衝擊更加高水平嘅賽事啦。咁世界錦標賽、奧運都一定係我哋嘅第一個目標嚟嘅。咁但係其實即係因為我未攞亞運會金牌之前，其實我都有呢一個set 呢一個金牌做目標嘅。咁但係當時其實我上一屆已經攞銅牌，咁但係我上一屆攞銅牌。咁去到今屆其實已經隔咗5年時間啦。咁期間都有人問過佢話：咁如果你上一屆攞銅牌，你今屆比起上一屆嘅成績差咗，咁你會唔會覺得即係好大壓力啊？或者你一定要攞金牌或者銀牌？因為其實我哋歷史上蛙艇就淨係攞過1次金牌啫。咁我自己就覺得呢5年其實我冇感受到特別大嘅壓力嘅，反而我自己覺得會係一種推動力咯，即係令到我會覺得我對呢樣嘢有更加大嘅渴望。咁因為其實就算我攞唔到呢個金牌，或者我攞唔到一啲好好嘅成績，其實到最後我唔會真係有好多人會鬧我啊，或者我損失咗啲咩。咁其實最重要係個過程咯，因為喺我追逐嗰個金牌嘅過程入邊，其實我同我 partner 都好 enjoy 去即係每一日去奮鬥啊，為咗自己嘅目標。咁即係好似啱啱段片都咁講，其實因為我哋朝頭早練6點鐘，我5點半起身嘅時候，我都係每一日都係想繼續瞓覺扮病。咁但係就係嗰一種每一日同自己講堅持少少、堅持少少嗰種感覺，其實係好似感覺到自己好存在嗰種感覺，先係我追求緊嘅嘢，而唔係去追求到有成績先覺得自己係即係對呢個項目嘅付出嘅肯定咯。
Thanks. I'll ask Bailee one more question, and then I think why don't we open it up and see if anyone has some questions for our speakers or the panel, the athletes. So Bailee, you got the last 2 Asian Games, you got bronze medal twice, right? Repeating is not easy. So how did you feel about the pressures on the first time when it was your first experience there compared to the second time? And then the other question is, can you tell us about the race in your life you've had that was not only best physically prepared, but you really felt you were mentally prepared?
I think my first Asian Games in 2018, I went into it very young, and I thought it was like so much fun, and it really opened my eyes to how amazing sport is and competition, and I had no pressure. And I think the field back in 2018 for Samhong Tian, it was a lot lower. And so we knew that this Asian Games was going to be a lot harder, but I also had more expectation on myself, like we spoke about, and I was nervous. And I think in the individual race, I didn't perform as well as I wanted to because I was so nervous. And I think that's something that everyone as athletes has to learn and experience at a big games, and we're not always going to get it right. And for our relay, we dealt with a lot of changes. We had 2 athletes who had to be switched out, so our best team was not racing, and we had to deal with those. And I think everyone on the day was very good because we still were able to get a medal, even with missing our two good athletes. And so I think it was very good to come away with a medal, but I want more, and I think that's always good as well.
Did that race the day before or 2 days before your not having a good race then, did that help your next race?
I think I just felt a lot of pressure throughout the whole event. It was a big games, and I want to make Hong Kong proud, and it was a very hard course in Hangzhou for us. It was like the run was so hilly and steep, and it was so different from normal races. So I'm very proud of our team, but I think we all expected better, and we aim for better in the next Asian Games.
And are there any races that you can think about that were stand out for you, like that you were best prepared for? Or you felt like, oh, I really hit that one?
I think this season was very good for me, and I improved a lot. I think last year I wasn't sure if I was even going to stay in the sport, but this year I had a lot of good races, and I made the podium for lots of them, and that's the first time ever in Hong Kong Asian Championships that a female has gotten on the podium. So I would say my race at Asian Championships in Saudi Arabia, and I raced in Weihai, China, and I had one of the best swims ever. And so for me as an athlete, I think this year I've made my whole life revolve around sport, but I make sure to have a healthy balance so that it doesn't consume me, it doesn't eat me. So for me, that means going to school, and so that if I do have some failures, which every athlete has, it doesn't ruin my life. And I still know that I am myself regardless of my races and regardless of my results.
Good answer. Yeah. Okay. So I told you I'm going to make it more interactive. So we have a couple more questions. So who's going to be the first one to ask, or I'll have to pick you? Be brave. Any questions? Okay, Ricky.
Hello, Henry. I think we had a lot. We knew that the SI is supporting sports psychology for every athlete, and you've been facing all the athletes in SI, and I think for me is we're working as a combat sport. I'm a tennis coach, and a lot of athletes is again in the close sports like swimmer, like a runner, like a triathlon. You facing different courses, but at the same time you're running for your own record. How you feel the difficulties when you helping combat sport athletes versus a close sports athletes? What difference that you try to do? Because when I face uncertainty, for example, tomorrow I'm facing the world #1 player or Asian #1 player, at a racket sports or other sports. What special things that you try to do with them?
Thank you for the question. Surely I would say different sports have different feature, and it will affect, as what Angela just said, some of the goal setting. I mean, the process goal and the performance goal will be quite different, I would say, for endurance sport and for interactive or compact sport. And they maybe have different focus on in terms of the way to use the skill. As you could imagine that is a closed skill sport, they're is relatively more easy for them to grab the understanding about how to use the visualization and imagery, because they're much more controllable if they're closed skill sport. But for compact sport or interactive sport, quite often we will, during the consultation, we will talk a lot about the game plan and how you use up all the time to perform the best you can, and how to prepare for something that you may not expect it, and how, because for compact sport, one of the, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the challenge would be they want to have some good game plan, but at the same time they have to be flexible, because you don't know how the other one will do. And the more you know about your opponent, the more tempting you will try to set up a very concrete detailed game plan, and sometimes, or even some of the coaches may ask them to try to execute the game plan as best as you can. But for us, sometimes the challenge for us would be, or for the athlete would be, how to be flexible along the way, because quite a lot of time the opponent may not really exactly do the thing that you expect to do. So you can't kind of bound or limit yourself within the game plan. But I would say still the game plan is important, that you know what to do, or you may have some plan A or plan B, and that's the thing that we work with them when we do the complex sport. So I would say that there's some of the different that I would say differently interesting, but still both colorful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Henry. So we have just another minute. I saw the sign. But before we go, I think let's try to finish off with some take-home message for everyone. So maybe Angela, can you provide us a take-home message for everyone who's come today?
Because I just like what I presented in my slide. I think a lot of the time people see sports psychology as like a Panadol, like a medicine, like a quick fix. So people only think about sports psychology as a solution to fix a very sudden problem. So when your athletes are experiencing any mental condition or anything like that, it's probably not the first time that they experience it. And so it actually requires a lot of work, and just like physical training, mental training require, I would say, the same amount of time to prepare. So I would encourage, no matter you're a coach or an athlete, try to maybe explore more options and try to equip yourself with more like mental skills or even sports psychology concepts or ideas into your daily training, so that athletes are more more ready to sort of learn sports psychology skills. Because when we talk about psychology, people always think that there's a certain stigma related to mental health or mental issues. So still nowadays, a lot of athletes still thinking that seeking help, talking to a sports psychologist, meaning that you have some problem, you're crazy, something like that. So it's actually not the same. What we always talk about performance psychology is sports psychology is performance enhancement. So every issue is a performance issue. So try to be open-minded to this topic. Yeah.
Thanks, Angela. So before I want to get to Peter and Bailee for the last message, but I just want to say that I agree with that, because a lot of the coaches, after an event, they may say, I was a coach before, so sometimes they would say to me, his performance, he's a really bad psychology, but actually, or he's not mentally there, but actually maybe it was his physical performance wasn't well. So actually they are really interchangeable and interlocked, because if you're physically not performing well, you might start falling apart mentally. But if you're mentally not performing well, you won't be able to use your physical gifts. So they're really intertwined. Yeah, so Peter, last message, anything you want to say?
我覺得作為一個運動員又好啊，作為一個教練都好，其實冇一個人係可以 perfect 嘅。咁即係因為我自己親身經歷啦，咁其實我教練佢係一個比較傳統啲嘅中國教練嚟嘅。咁佢就好多時佢其實唔係好相信即係 mental health 會影響呢啲嘢。咁但係佢會有即係佢會影響到我嘅位就係、佢會喺比賽前一日同我講一啲令到我好緊張嘅嘢，就例如問我緊唔緊張。咁呢 which is 係會令到我更加緊張嘅。咁但係呢，跟住我就會覺得其實即係有時我會覺得做乜嘢要咁樣。即係但係我擰翻轉頭咁樣諗，其實 即係學頭先兩位專家講咁就係都正常嘅，即係人之常情啦。咁但係佢哋可以去學習一啲更加好嘅心理學嘅 skills 去了解我。咁其實對即係佢哋嚟講，我都要諒解佢哋啦。咁我自己作為一個運動員呢，我覺得因為我都係國內人，我細個嘅時候我緊張 perform 得唔好呢，其實我自己會覺得去揾心理學家我係咪有病咁樣？但係其實慢慢大個咗之後，去學識咗要去接受自己係有呢方面嘅不足咯，即係唔一定係有心理疾病先去揾心理專家。其實可以嘗試下踏出第一步去接觸下呢樣嘢，咁可以俾自己一個更加大嘅進步空間咯。所以我覺得運動員同教練都可以行多一步去接觸多啲運動心理學層面上嘅嘢。
My final message, very short. Communication is the most important with your coach, with your athlete, with your family, with your friends. If you can openly communicate, you will all move forward. And thank you for listening. 加油香港啊!
Once again,
Okay,
please
thank you,
give it up. Sorry to Michael, Henry, Angela, Bailee and Peter. 咁今日嘅seminar咧就已經完結啦，亦都好多謝大家咧咁熱烈嘅參與，令到我哋今年度最尾嘅一個 seminar 咧可以咁充實嘅。好，咁所以而家麻煩大家咧，亦都喺最後嘅時間，最後1分鐘咧 scan 翻熒光幕上面嘅 QR code， 咁填妥今日嘅活動問卷，亦都話翻俾我哋聽，可能將來你哋有啲咩嘢嘅題目想聽嘅話咧，都可以俾翻啲意見我哋。最後咧就係麻煩咁多位參加者喺走嘅時候咧喺門口簽走翻，咁我哋就會根據記錄咧喺下一個星期就會寄送翻嗰個 certificate 去你哋相應嘅機構或者總會㗎啦。唔該晒 ，thank you。